Well, guys, it's good to be back. So thank you all for showing up here today. We're going to do it a little bit differently because I really want to get more conversations going. And so we've got a lot of questions to answer today. And I might as well start. Why don't we start with the one on gold? Do I expect spot gold to drop back to 2,800? I think there was a question there like that. And so I pulled up the chart to just kind of jump into it. However, there are some more things that I want to talk about and get your feedback on. Let's have this conversation. I'd really like it to be, us, our community talking about what's important to us. So the other thing is, please, hit that like button. Make sure that you share this. But, let's rock and roll together. Let's do this as a community. So can we go to that? All right, here is the spot gold chart. Let's see, I can make it a little bit bigger, okay? And I hope you can see it. And the question was, let me see, can I make it even bigger than that? There we go. Okay, maybe that's a bit bigger. All right, so the question is, do we still expect gold to pull back to 2,800? Well, I didn't get my little count pointer. It did right here. So the answer is nope, that gap has already been filled. I expect spot to continue to go up as things remain very uncertain. One of the things that we talked about in a video last week, and I want to get some feedback on there, is what's happening with the Social Security. Because while the vow has been not to touch it, and it's a hard thing to touch because there's so many people that are dependent upon it. Leland Dudek, the accidental leader, elevated to acting commissioner of the Social Security under pressure from DOGE, he has pushed out dozens of officials with years of expertise in running Social Security's complex benefit and information technology systems. Others have left in disgust, but the Social Security site has been down four times in the last 10 days. So with millions and millions of people depending upon their benefits from Social Security, maybe they won't attack it by reducing benefits, except that if people can't access their benefits or get questions answered, etc., it kind of amounts almost to the same thing. What's going on is the destruction of the agency from the inside out, and it's accelerating. I have people approaching me all the time in their 70s and 80s, and they're besides themselves. They don't know what's coming. But then again, I believe that I know what's coming because I've studied currency life cycles. And honestly, you guys, what we're seeing with all the chaos is necessary destruction. I mean, I hate to say that because it has such a negative impact on a lot of people, but I have to say that it is necessary destruction. And it's kind of like a wildfire, right? That also may be hard for some people to hear, considering the fact of what has been going on in California, etc. But after a wildfire, then new shoots emerge, new buildings emerge. So out of the ashes of this financial wildfire, which is really what we're in already, it's already started, there will be a new system that emerges. We just need to make sure that we're prepared for anything. So that's where we go to food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, because we need to have security in all of those areas to sustain a reasonable standard of life, to protect the wealth that we've already managed to accumulate, and to be in a position to accumulate wealth even further so that we come out the other side of this much better than when we entered. So don't wait for pullbacks, because, I've been accumulating gold since it was, forever, but in earnest, I started in 2002, and it was at $248 an ounce at that point. I mean, I could get one of these little roosters for $78. I'm not sure what they go for now, but I think several hundred. So don't wait, because what we know is that gold is severely undervalued, and so is silver. And we haven't yet concluded that cup, but I think that it's that coming to conclusion in that cup should be much, much higher. So let's take some questions, and then there's some more things that I want to kind of bring up to discuss. But if any of you want to comment on what we just talked about, you know somebody that's going through it, you have a circumstance yourself, you've been counting on Social Security, let's hear from you with your experience. And this is a question from one of the strategy specialists, actually Brandon, because he asked me this question yesterday. So I know who this is. And why do I think that we will be in hyperinflation? It says in 10 years, but he meant for 10 years. And he asked me that because my personal strategy has a barterable portfolio that I've designed to last for 10 years. I can't tell you exactly how long this one is going to last. Usually, technically speaking, this phase that we're talking about lasts about half as long as the current phase that we're in. So that would support that 10-year window, but it could take less. I mean, his comment was, with all of the, cryptocurrencies, can't we get through this so much faster? These transitions are never, ever, ever easy. They are never, ever, ever like a blip. They are a process and a journey, because one of the things that has to happen is that all of this debt has to be blown off. It has to be repaid, and repaid with dollars that have no value whatsoever. So we utilize that in our sound money strategy. We really do position ourselves the same way that the elites, that the 1%ers, that the people that know what's happening are doing, so that they can take advantage of it. I can't guarantee you it's going to be 10 years, but I can't guarantee you it's not. If it's less than that, those would be more than likely the first part of the portfolio that I would start to convert into the new currency as I needed it, because I just don't care about it that much. I feel the same way about my savings gold, right? I don't care about this as much. It's there for an emergency. And so barterable would be the first thing that I would begin to convert, and then savings gold would be the second thing. And then the collectible coins are the last thing after I see those cup formations in other income producing assets. And we will talk all about that as we go through this whole transition period. And Anthony Shepard asks, what is the status of the precious metals paper market? Are the LBMA, COMEX, and bullion banks losing control? It definitely looks like they're losing control. It also looks like this is a big part of the repatriation. Those in the know that are in those upper echelons, realizing that this crisis that is unfolding, but that most people don't really quite see yet, is going to be, it's going to make 2008 look like a walk in the park. And so they're bringing in the gold. And yes, I think that there is going to come a point where we will see them obviously losing control. I think we're already there. And I think one of the things that would definitely push it, these physical markets, particularly in England, but anywhere in the world, is when governments request their gold back from the Bank of England, who has now not just loaned it out, but actually kind of sold it off, because that is making good delivery here in the U.S. What are you going to do? Call and say, okay, give it back? I don't know that that would be so easy. So this is something, Anthony, that we all need to pay attention to, something that I personally have been waiting for as they created the last time that I could actually see those numbers. Thank you, Bank for International Settlements. 62 1,000 ounces of gold for every 1 ounce of real gold that actually exists. And, the numbers are probably pretty similar to silver too, because in the U.S., they're paper markets. Great question. We need to just continue to pay attention to this unfolding thing and build our portfolio. If you haven't done it yet, make sure that you click that link, set up a time to talk with one of our strategy specialists, and get it executed as quickly as possible. And however we can be of service, even in all those other areas of the mantra, we have people, even though we don't have the site just yet, we do have people that can answer a lot of those questions. So we are all of us here to be of service to you. And Wolf asks, hi, Lynette, how will the layoff of thousands of federal employees affect Social Security? Won't that not only exacerbate the funding of this agency and ability to make payments, but also the economy? Yes, yes, and yes, because Social Security and Medicare are both pay-as-you-go programs, which means that those of us that are working, we are paying into the Social Security system, and then that money is being used up to pay current beneficiaries. So where we used to have, and I don't know what that number is right now, but to your point, the layoffs would absolutely impact that. When they first started the Social Security program, there were 156 workers for every one beneficiary. The most current data that I've seen on it is, I think, 2.6 workers for every one beneficiary. And with all of these layoffs, because it's like a domino effect, right? It isn't just the federal employees, it's all of those private businesses that really performed a lot of the government functions that are no longer performing that. And so, I don't know, you think there might be some layoffs there. So, it's severely underfunded. It's been underfunded and in deficit since, I believe, 2010. And the big rush of the baby boomers hit in 2013. So, when there was excess, Congress took that money, left a whole bunch of IOUs, and that's the state of the system. And while I remember in the 70s, because I heard my parents and my Uncle Al talking, and my Aunt Ann and Uncle Allie, and, they'd get together every Friday night and play penny ante poker. And I used to love to be kind of like this little fly on the wall and listen to their conversations. And I remember thinking when I was 17 years old, that's how long ago, Social Security is really not going to be there for me by the time I get there. Well, it was, but it is shifting. And so maybe they're not saying that they're going to cut back benefits, but we can see from what's happening there that the staff to manage the very complicated system is not there anymore. And so, let's stay tuned to that. And remember, we are a community. I can tell you that I planted the exterior of my property so that if somebody's hungry, they can pick food. Never has it been more important to come together in community. Never, ever, ever. We have to help those because a lot of them are, retired people, older people, disabled people, or children that have lost support. So we have to come in and be their support. We can't count on Social Security anymore, right? What can you do? What can you do? One individual. There are ways to help, and maybe we can look at that or explore that more. And TGH asks, is it possible the government could confiscate all the non-U.S. minted coins and only allow USA gold? Yep. Anything is possible. I can't control what the government is going to do. And that is definitely a possibility. Unfortunately, thanks to my friend Tiger Stacker, right? Hopium is what you're hoping for. And that doesn't really work. You can't hope something. You have to look at history and say, what is the most likely outcome? What is likely to happen when governments get desperate, because desperate governments do desperate things. So I want you to think about this. We know that the spot market is a contract market and does not reflect the true fundamental value of gold. It's history. We know that governments will suppress it until they need to regain public confidence, which, by the way, dropped pretty dramatically yet again. And so then they do that overnight revaluation, this junk against that, right? But historically, before they do that, they take most of your gold or all of your gold away. Now, since the spot market's manipulated, what's to say? I mean, I used to say, and what is, let's say they do it when it's 2,000 an ounce. And then I said, let's say they do it when it's 3,000 an ounce. Well, let's say they do it when it's $10,000 an ounce. And that's when they choose to pull the plug on it. All they have to do, thanks to eminent domain laws, is pay the fair market value, which they've manipulated. So big deal. But they can't do that with these. Why? Because fair value is going to be different for every coin. And this makes up less than 2% of the total gold market out there. So quite frankly, there's not enough of this available. Additionally, some of these coins, 1 ounce of gold has gone for 15 million bucks. Well, even if they said, we'll pay you $20,000 for your gold, is the person that paid $15 million for that coin likely to turn it in for 20 grand or 100 grand or 500 grand? The answer is no. Additionally, the person that can afford a $15 million coin is likely to either write the laws like Treasury Secretary Wooden did, or have influence over those that write the laws. I mean, forever and ever and ever, we've seen Wall Street and Washington be a revolving door. Now, at least it's more honest. At least we know it for sure instead of going, So you have to think about that. And when I can make a choice where it doesn't matter if I'm right or I'm wrong, number one, I'm not working on hopium. I'm working on historical facts, which are much more likely to be accurate. And that's why I personally only buy collectible gold coins. I only have this one piece of bullion and my travel piece because I got to hold it up if I'm talking about it. So
Tiger Stacker is in the chat. He says he loves the label.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't, not that I didn't love it the way that it just wasn't visible. So thank you very much, because this was a gift from Tiger Stacker to me. I appreciate that. So no use for a name. Update on the Fort Knox gold. There is no update yet. I'm sure that they're going to go in, maybe audit it, but I want to see the paper trail. I don't want to just see them go, yep, that's where the gold is. I am truly praying that they are smart enough not to trade what gold, physical gold that we have that's proven for thousands and thousands of years and used in every single sector of the global economy, to become a purely risk-based. Obviously, this is not real gold. It just looks like it. You need the real thing. So we'll be paying attention to that. And Wasted White Boy 2. What? Oh, that's the one that I answered. Okay. And Goldenon. What are the implications of Fort Knox having the gold versus not having the gold, whether it's simply not there or it's gold-painted bricks? Well, the implications are on a major global level, because one of the things is that the U.S. has retained its position as the world reserve currency and actually made quite a name for ourselves controlling the global financial system, which we know has been changing. And it's really been changing pretty dramatically since 2000, whether or not that's visible. So if the gold is not there, or the gold is there and we actually don't own it because they took time to track down all of the complicated leasing and all of that, I think that we would see an overnight plunging of the dollar against every other currency on the planet because the lie would have been revealed. So that's happening anyway. We are absolutely losing that status, but we still do. The US dollar still makes up the lion's share of currencies used globally. It's shifting. There's no doubt about it. So the implication, if the gold is really not there or we really don't own it, would be a very rapid loss of that status, and that means hyperinflation. And on a global basis, it also means nobody would loan us any money, right? Right now, even though that's been declining, and particularly from our two largest historical buyers, China and Japan, they've been reducing their holdings of U.S. Treasuries since 2013 in a very similar run against the dollar to what happened in the 60s with governments sending in their dollars and pulling the gold out of the system. So yeah, it would not be pretty for the U.S. And that's why, really, nobody's going to be immune from what we're going through. But the reality is the U.S. is probably going to feel it the most because we have enjoyed our privilege, the exceptionalism of the U.S. dollar for many, many, many years. And any of you that have traveled from the U.S. to other countries, you might notice that what a middle-class American, well, at least one point anyway, what a middle-class American, what their standard of living was very different than middle-class in England or France or other places. So we've enjoyed that privilege, but we're losing that privilege. And that's why it's critically important for you to build that sound money portfolio and get that laid in ASAP. Because I can't tell you when it's going to happen. That is way above my pay grade. But it is happening. It is happening right now. And you're seeing central banks doing that. Why wouldn't you? And can I have the next question, please? Goldens and Coons asked, thank you for answering questions today. With so much wealth of the American people tied up in their homes, how is the housing market going to fare in these inflationary times? That's such a good question. Today, the data came out, and I don't think this was on a completely universal basis, but in several key states in the U.S., housing prices have continued to go up. And you're coupling that with what seems to be high interest rates, except when I bought my first house in the 70s, my interest rate was, I think, something like 12.75. The house was about 1,800 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, dining room, a family room, a kitchen. It was a great little starter house, no doubt about it. I paid $59,000 for it. So the payment on it was a whole lot more affordable. This is a huge problem for most people. That's why it's also part of the sound money strategy. If you have a fixed rate mortgage on it, part of the strategy is to repay that mortgage when they do that official overnight reset with dollars that have zero value. The other risk that real estate actually runs, and I'm not even talking about pricing because in a hyperinflationary environment, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. But the other problem that real estate faces is in property taxes because they call it immovable property. You can't take your house, put it on your back, and walk away with it. You can do that with gold. You can have a $15 million coin and stick it in your pocket and go anywhere in the world with it, but you can't do that with real estate. So part of the sound money strategy is enabling you to pay that mortgage off, but bam, so that you are not forced into a new contract on your home that is a lot more onerous than the one that you're in right now. And we've got to ensure that you can always pay your property taxes, because during the Depression, you got to have your house fully paid for. But if you didn't pay your property taxes, you lost your house. So yeah, it's not. And if you're doing it for leasing, that's another part of it, right? If you're using real estate to generate income, well, as we saw during COVID, where people didn't have to necessarily pay their rent for a big block of time, but the owners' costs continued on. Taxes, insurance, whatever, maintenance fees. So all of that, depending upon, that's why we put your goals first, right? Because somebody might need that, but somebody else might not need that. So we tailor these strategies to suit whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot around real estate, but I can tell you 100%, and I've done studies on it. Maybe we can put the link to the real estate and gold in there. And so, I've done studies for years and years and years on what happens to real estate during these periods of time. There's the opportunity. Globally on average, been different places, but globally on average, 25 ounces of gold or the equivalent could buy an entire city block, buildings and all. And we do have a major commercial real estate crisis that's unfolding as well. And that goes back to the first question, not just about the employees, but about all that commercial real estate that the government was renting. Not going to happen. So, understand this is necessary. And this is what I've been waiting for. And I don't like saying that, but it is a fact. It's awful if you're not prepared for it, but if you are prepared for it, then you can weather this storm, you can help other people, and you can come out the other side better than when we entered it. So, and it is really my pleasure to answer these questions and be here for you guys. It really, really is. You don't even know how much I appreciate you. You don't even know it, but I do. I absolutely do. And Cindy Bradshaw asks, I've heard that there is a ratio between silver and gold. At a certain ratio, we should exchange our silver for gold. What is that ratio? And that is actually the gold-silver ratio. And, this gets questioned and it gets changed, but let me show you the reality, okay? This is a 20th of an ounce of gold, a $1 gold coin. In the beginning, this 20th of an ounce was equal to this silver 1 ounce silver dollar. And both of them were equal to, they didn't do $1 gold certificates, but they did do $1 silver certificates and $1 Federal Reserve notes. They allowed all of those to circulate at the same dictated level of purchasing power, getting everybody used to it. But that's the ratio, Cindy, that they're talking about, is the gold to silver ratio. And trading one for the other when they hit certain parameters is called ratio trading, and it's assuming a trade. That is not really where we are. Do I think that ratio can narrow? I think we're at something like 88 or 92 to 1 right now. I'd have to double check that. But historically, as we go through these periods, you typically will see that ratio gap narrow for a minute until we really enter the hyperinflation. And that's because silver more and more is used in industry, and it gets used up in industry. So historically, though, when we enter that hyperinflationary phase, you will see that gap grow wider and wider and wider. Why? Because it's gold that they reset the currency to, not silver. Silver is a secondary currency metal. And so this is not the time to think trading. This is the time to think protection. This is the time to think holding your purchasing power intact. And then we will trade out your gold. And depending upon how much silver you have, although this is really bulkier to do it in, but it's not like you couldn't absolutely do it. Just takes up a whole lot more room and takes a whole lot more time and energy. But at some point, we will be trading this, well, actually probably more like this, into income producing assets. So we'll be doing our ratio trading, but not gold against silver. You need both. So, and you need them based upon what you're trying to accomplish. That's what we do. That's why we put your goals first. And we have a whole list. This is better done with barterable silver. This is better done with barterable gold. This is better done with asset protection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we put your goals first. And again, I want to make comment that if I don't answer somebody's question to their understanding, please let me know so I can try to explain it again. Okay, that is my job. That is why I'm here, and I'm very happy to do it, and I don't lose patience with it. I promise.
Real quickly, Tyler, sorry, it was just a funny comment. Tyler, he asks, what is this about? Can I ask anything? What's under the pyramids? That's kind of where he was asking. So.
Oh, what's under the pyramids? Well, I think actually there's probably quite a bit of gold underneath the pyramids, because it's my understanding that those were the tombs of kings, right? And queens. And so they were buried with their wealth, and a lot of that was gold. So there's gold underneath them thar pyramids.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next question.
Okay, Dylan Williams. Hey, Lynette, just wanted to say thanks. You are very welcome. Thank you. I'm working with Sari. Oh, excellent. And she's given me hope. Also, weren't you going to do a farming channel? Well, first of all, I love Sari. I'm really glad that you're with her. She's great, as is everybody at Zang Enterprises. We are all here to be of service, and we all work together. So if you're talking to any of them, you're talking to all of us, including me. And yes, I am dying to do my farming channel. I can't even tell you. We have a lot of recordings that are already made. We're just getting, we need to be a little more stable in an area before we can put that out. But personally, I'm chomping at the bit, because it's critically important. Food becomes the single biggest issue for people during these periods of time. And so having the knowledge, no matter where, if you're living in a high rise and you don't even have a balcony, how can you create food security, right? Or if you have a big backyard, how do you do this? Personally, I didn't grow up as a gardener, but I knew in 2008 that the system died and that food was the single biggest issue. So that's when I became an urban farmer. So yes, thank you, Dylan, for asking. And I'm glad that she's given you hope. I hope I'm giving everybody hope, because so much of what I talk about is nasty, ugly, doom and gloom stuff. And, you know, what I want you to understand is that the point of that is for you to see where we are in the trend cycle. Personally, I have a lot of hope. I think this is our absolute best opportunity that I have ever seen for getting sound money back in our system again, and getting the public the opportunity to hold those 1%ers that really have no clue what it's like to work and try and support your family and plan for an education, plan for retirement, plan for vacation, for goodness sakes, making sure that you can feed your family and take care of it. So yes, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of hope. Thank you for bringing that up, Dylan, because I think we can make a positive difference, all of us together. I can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. But together, yeah, there's 8.4 billion people on this planet. Let's get 3 of them to understand and convert into physical metals, gold and silver. Then I think we could have a shot at actually having sound money back in the system, but it has to be convertible. I don't want a pegged. Pegged is, right? You can fill in your own blanks on that one, because then they don't have to change a thing that they're doing. Thank you, Zimbabwe. And by the way, Zimbabwe is now in a pace where foreigners are going in. I got to dig a little bit deeper on this, so don't hold me to it, but it came up as a headline this morning, and I pulled it to put on my list to look at. But apparently Zimbabweans, or people that are outside of Zimbabwe, are rushing to Zimbabwe real estate. Do I think it's the time to do it? Heck no, I don't. But that does prove the point that that's what always happens. It always happens. And it goes back to that other question about what happens to real estate. But until we're on the other side of this and we can see that accumulation pattern, that's not for speculation. No. Why speculate when you can do this and it's a solid truth? Right? We know this is worth over 40 grand. You can buy it at a little bit over 3,000. I don't know what the individual coins are going for right now, but spot was, when I looked earlier, I think 3,020 or something like that. You know, it's a bargain. And Linda Lou asks, 59 and married, should I keep buying silver? I have done gold. Or should I at least keep building some stocks? I have 3 months of food. Thank you so much. Well, you're very welcome, Linda. And what I suggest is that you call us to make sure and talk about your goals, because then we can tell you, how much gold do you need? How much silver do you need to support those goals? I can't do it kind of in a blanket because I don't know what your circumstances are. But we are happy to help you understand, you know, how much and what kind of gold you need and how much and what kind of silver that you need. I would completely stay away from stocks at this moment. Okay. I mean, you know, it's still got to go into correction territory. Do I think that we can have a melt up? Heck yes, I think we can have a melt up. But stocks are only valued in this stuff. So if that goes to zero, like my $10 trillion Zimbabwean note or 4,800 other currencies that have gone to zero, let me tell you, if you can only convert it into this, what good does it do you when that has no value at all? And will Trump have time to resolve all problems that are in the USA? Well, first of all, I don't think one person can do it, because this is the end of a currency's life cycle. So it's not, you know, he's not God. He's a human being, just like you're a human being and I'm a human being. He has more power than we do. But no, I don't think that he can resolve all the problems, because the biggest problem is that debt mountain that has to be dealt with. Well, how do you deal with that? Right? Taking on more debt, does that help? No, it just covers everything up until it can no longer do it. And there was just a report out on Moody's today, which I don't have here. I don't. But where they were saying that what's happening in the U.S. financially is really, we're in jeopardy of going into a major crisis or something like that. I'll probably talk about it after I read that whole article. But the bottom line is, this is a currency life cycle issue. There isn't one person, one country, one system. It's got to all implode like that wildfire. Everything's got to be burned out. Then we can get green shoots and we can start to rebuild. The question that you have to answer for yourself is, what's going to put you in the best possible position to participate in those green shoots? And history, thousands and thousands of years of history, tells you this is how you do that. Is this time different? I don't think so. They always say this time's different, never different. So hopium doesn't work. Though that sticker does look pretty good. It's obvious, right? And Joanne Diaz asks, wouldn't it make sense for the U.S. to go back on the gold standard? Yes, and a lot has come up about the BRICS going on a gold standard, et cetera, et cetera. But you see, once they do that, it fixes the debt where it is, and it cannot be easily inflated away. Hence the issue that we've seen with Zimbabwe, saying that their goal was their ZIG gold was backed by gold, but it wasn't. It was just pegged to a manipulated price. And when they needed to deal with the debt, what did they do? They did a 44% overnight revaluation, where it was, I think it was born in April, and this was in October. I mean, come on. So, yes, it does make sense for the U.S. to go back on a gold standard. It makes sense for the whole world to go back on a gold standard, and that's what I'm fighting for. That's why we have to build this local and global community, because that's what I'm fighting for. Yes. Because then you're fairly paid, right? I mean, think about it. There are 4 key functions of every currency. It's a tool of measure, right? So, well, both of these, this is shrinkflation, by the way, but these can be priced, right? A tool of measure, a tool of barter. If you give it to me, I'll accept it and I'll give you this, right? A tool of current fair value, so that you are always fairly paid for your labor today, and a tool of long storage value, so that no matter when you use that money, you are always paid fairly for the labor that created that money. In the fiat money system, it's just the opposite. I mean, who in the world doesn't know that over time, this buys you less and less and less? And going into the digital system, what they've talked about is negative rates. And so you get your paycheck, it goes into your bank account, and now, bam, you have less immediately because of those negative rates. So the gold has all of those functions. That's why it's the primary currency metal, has been for 6,000 years, will be for the next 6,000 years, right? But you want to also think about the fiat money. This stuff eliminated the long-term store of value. And what they're talking about with this stuff is eliminating the current form of value as well, down to 2 functions. Give me 4 functions. That's what I want. I want those 4 functions. And I want them for you. And Carrie McKee says, does all pre-33 gold have to be slabbed to get the biggest bang for the buck? Well, yeah, kind of, because that's what designates its quality and rarity. So, like, I use this for my savings. It's just a raw pre-33 lib. That's all it is. It's going to run with the spot market. It's going to reflect that, right? But this is, what is this? This is a Mint State 63, and from the San Francisco Mint, right? So what does that mean? And going back to your question, what that means, this was used in circulation, right? It's got all sorts of blemishes all over it. You see me hold it all the time, right? No big deal. But this MS means Mint State, never been in circulation. So already that makes this better than this, right? Because it's more rare. These were created to be used in circulation. So Mint State, and then the number designation, this one happens to be a 63. And that means the level of blemish, right? And Mint State runs between 60 having the highest number of blemishes to 70 being like absolutely perfect, no blemishes at all. I think I have a few Mint State 68s, not a lot because they're hard to find. But I certainly pay a lot more for those than I do for this, because this is just going to run with spot. So does all pre-33 gold have to be slabbed to get the biggest bang for the buck? Sure, because it's all about supply and demand. And you'll have more of the coins that are not slabbed available than you will have coins that maybe there's only 100 of them in the whole world known to exist. Well, people are willing to pay more for it. thus that $15 million coin. But again, I want to go back to there never really is a blanket answer. What are you trying to accomplish? Because I personally, and in the strategy, there are all these levels between this and this, depending upon whether I want to pay off a mortgage, whether or not I want to deal with a long-term illness, whether or not I want to leave a legacy for my family, whether or not I want to buy income-producing real estate, whether or not I want to buy dividend-paying stocks. You know, today is not the time to buy any of those things, but that time is coming. And so there are areas where, yeah, I want the bigger bang for the buck. And Akash Yaknik says, hey, Lynette, since there is an exchange rate between all paper currencies, wouldn't revaluing gold need every country's currency to revalue? Otherwise, inflation would dilute the purchasing power again. Voila, you're absolutely 100% correct. That's why I say this is a global issue, because it's actually what's happening. And when you hear somebody say a strong dollar or a weak dollar, they're talking about relative to other currencies. But if you go into one of those currency exchange sites, I think I use XE myself, right? And you know how I always show you charts? You've got the links for them. You'll see that gold is priced in every single currency. And it's making new highs in every single currency. So yes, all currencies are going to be revalued. Every single one. You get to choose what you want to hold to go into the new currency. Me, give me sound money. It really is that simple. And it is that simple. When it's really, really complicated, what are they trying to pull the wool over your eyes or something? It should be that simple. And yes, if you then stick with paper currency, inflation will erode that. Robert G. Darling asks, you recommended only numismatic gold to protect against government confiscation. How likely do you think that is possible? And would the government go door to door to search for it? Okay. So I do think it's possible, because when I was born in 1954, it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces in any other way but bam, this one. And my Uncle Al, I'm sorry, but you cannot take away personal experiences, and I have been groomed for this moment in time. And there's a reason why I was born into the family that I was, and there's a reason why Uncle Al was so impactful, because he really did teach me how tangible assets move from undervaluation to fair valuation to overvaluation to fair valuation to undervaluation. So in this country, in the U.S., gold has been confiscated overtly, I'm going to say overtly, 3 times, and it's always going into wartime. I think one of them was the War of 1812, the Civil War. I have a Confederate note right here, and then again in 33. So for me, that's historic precedence. Second of all, when I look at what's happening around the world, they'll call it royalties, or they'll give it taxes, or they'll give it all different names, but all of them are forms of confiscation. I urge you, I'll be coming out with another piece of the confiscation puzzle next week, but I urge you to go in and look at that series, because desperate governments do desperate things. They have been confiscating your work and your wealth through inflation since the day you were born. And it's really hard for me to imagine that at the very end of it, they're going to stop. But my Uncle Al had at least 3,000 coins. And they weren't slabbed, because they didn't really start that in earnest till 1986. They were in raw form. But it was legal, and he could use it in the normal marketplace. For me, that made a huge impression. I had to be at that place at that moment in time to have that experience. And has that impacted me? You bet it has. Because if I can buy this way under fundamental value, I mean way, way, way under fundamental value, but then they would have to check the value of each one of them. No, they're not going to go door to door. Now, they did in India when they demonetized, 85% of the currency. They did go door to door at that time. And they allowed their citizens to hold a certain level of gold, and they took a certain level of gold. So, you know, I don't think that they're likely to go door to door. India is a country that's more attuned to wearing their wealth via gold than the U.S., where very few people own gold. So I don't think they'll go door to door. But yeah, I 100% think that it's possible to get an overt confiscation, because price manipulation is a form of confiscation. Taxation is a form of confiscation. Inflation is a form of confiscation. So yeah, they're doing it covertly. If they need to do it overtly, thinking they won't, hopium. Not history, and not what's happening currently, where miners in Africa, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, a number of other places are required to sell 20% or whatever of what they pull out of the ground to the government in local currency. That's confiscation. They can call it royalties, they can call it whatever they want, but that's still confiscation. So yeah, I really am. Now, maybe they won't do it. I can't guarantee that they will or they won't. But if I can do something where, quite frankly, I don't need hopium, why wouldn't I do that? And for those of you that are just, I want bullion, period, I want quantity, okay, well then how about properly diversifying your portfolio with collectibles so that if you're wrong, it gets recouped? Just a thought. You have to do whatever you're comfortable doing, regardless of what anybody says, including me. And To Walk with God asks, do you think Trump will issue out a gold-backed new dollar? Eventually, I think yes. I think we will see that again. I think we're going to see it globally because it's all about confidence. And one of the things that happens 100% of the time when governments and the public goes through hyperinflationary events, they lose all confidence in the systems, they lose all confidence in the currency, they lose all confidence in those that are in authority. What they do then is they put gold as a component into the currency. This is why I was watching Zimbabwe so closely, because that's what happens 100% of the time. So do I think that if he's still in office, then yes, I do think that there will be a component of gold in the currency. Hopefully, though, if we can do our work well and we can grow this very quiet and peaceful revolution to have a seat at the table, it must be convertible, period. And what that means is you walk in with this, you'll walk out with this. In other words, you can pull it from the system. That, my friends, is the only way that the public will have control over the government again. That's what I want to see. Whether or not we see it, I don't know. But yeah. And Stryker asks, fractional gold or silver? So fractional gold is, it's all these smaller pieces, less than an ounce. Okay, so here's an ounce. And you can see. So that's what fractional means. It's less than an ounce. And it depends, okay? For my property taxes, what I personally like are the fractional gold coins, and especially like this rooster or a Swiss franc. Swiss francs must be dated prior to 1948. They did a whole bunch of new restrikes and that are dated 1948, so must be earlier than that. But so fractional gold is perfect for managing your property taxes. But if I'm going to the grocery store, then what I want is fractional or 1 ounce silver pieces, right? That's what I want for that. So there is a list of what's better held on your barterable portfolio, what works best with barterable gold, and what works best with barterable silver. And so if we can define, what you need it for, and how much of that and how much it's costing you right now, then we can determine, this is what you need for this, how much barterable gold, how much barterable silver.
And I will say real quickly, sorry to interrupt you, Lynette.
It's okay.
We're going to have a video on Thursday that goes a little bit more in depth, because you've answered this question. You go a little bit more in depth in that video, and that'll be posted on Thursday. So make sure you subscribe, come back. But if you have any other questions, of course, give us a call. Always, we're available for you.
Absolutely. And Ratmat Razei, and if I butcher your name, please, please, please forgive me. But what's going to happen to the premium of gold and silver when the prices go up? Supply and demand, baby. What you'll see is the premiums will also go up. And I will say, because I've been watching this for so many years, that the premiums on these are not near their historic average. So these are, in my personal opinion, the biggest bargain on the planet is right here. But it depends. Again, it all goes back to it depends. But the premiums will go up.
Now, someone, just because we're on that subject real quickly, someone had asked in the questions what they thought, what you believed a fair price for slabbed coins is. And I know there's a difference there, so why don't you?
Again, it depends. If I'm looking at a Mint State 62 and maybe there are, 15, 20,000 of them, and you do need to understand that I don't really look at the coin prices on a day-to-day basis, so I can't really give you prices anyway. But you can call us and just have them show you the difference between the prices on the coins based on those populations and the quality level, the level of blemish, so they can show you. I can tell you that the most, and I don't have that here, it's in the vault, but I think the most expensive coin that I have personally bought, and this was a while ago, and I think I paid maybe 14 or 15,000 for it. Maybe there were about, if I remember correctly, I think there were under 10 that were known to exist or something like that. It was really, really rare, and it was also a nice high quality. And even that was still at that time below fundamental value. I see no reason to pay above fundamental value for any coin. And that's kind of like your minimum, because I can't give you a lot of guarantees, but this happens 100% of the time. So I'm prepared to give you this particular guarantee that at some point, all assets and all instruments go to their fundamental value. That's why it's so important, not just to know it on gold, but how about knowing it on the dollar, right? What's the fundamental value of the dollar? Who could tell you what that is? The Federal Reserve, the Fed. Look at the purchasing power chart. There's a big fat zero. And we've been marching to that ever since. And that means that anything that is denominated only in dollars that's its fundamental value too. Even if the price of the stock market goes up, its fundamental value is a big fat zero, goose egg. Better to buy it after all the garbage is burned out of these markets. Buy a bargain. Right now, that's all overvalued. It's overvalued for so many reasons and on so many levels. But silver and gold, undervalued. I like to hold most of my wealth in an undervalued asset that's in a long-term positive trend. That's what gold is. That's what silver is.
Real quickly, John, just because, again, we're here on this topic, I just want to, because it's happening now. So John asked, and John Dugan, sorry if I missed that, and fundamental value can be found in the PCGS 3000 index?
No. That is an index, so that's a pricing of a whole bunch of different coins. Fundamental value, it takes a teeny bit of nuance, but anybody can do it. Now, certainly the Federal Reserve is telling you the true value of the dollar being zero, and that's been true for over 4,800 currencies that have ever existed. So how do you know what the fundamental value of an ounce of gold is? Well, gold is sound money. This stuff is fiat money. So they're both money, they're just the flip side of the coin, right? But how is this money created? Debt. So in order to find the fundamental value of gold, you have to know how much debt is there. Now, mind you, there are derivatives of this debt, which are big fat bets, and we're not even going to go there because I couldn't even begin to tell you what that number is because that's such an opaque market. But the debt markets, with a little bit of search, you can find that. So you take all of the debt that's been created that tells you how many dollars have been created, or euros or yen or whatever it is. But it'll tell you how much fiat money has been created. We know how much gold exists in the world, whether it's above ground or still in ground, because gold is indestructible. So we can account for about 98% of it, of all the gold that exists. Plus, the Department of the Interior runs an annual report on in-ground gold on a global basis, in-ground gold and in-ground silver. So you take all of the debt that's been created and you divide it by all of the gold that exists, and then that tells you what the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold is. Do I expect Wall Street? Here, I'll ask the next question. Do I expect Wall Street to ever tell me what the true fundamental value of gold is? Only after the central banks have done so by revaluing this garbage against sound money. That's where that number really comes into play. And the more debt they grow, the higher that number goes. So as outrageous as it sounds, I'm pretty sure that somebody back in 1913, if you were to tell them, you know, someday this little $20 gold piece is going to be worth over $3,000, they would have looked at you like you had two heads. And that's why when I say that, it sounds outrageous, but that's only because they have visibly suppressed it. And they visibly suppress the price that you see on gold because a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. A rising gold price is an indication of a crisis that is happening. And they don't want you to protect yourself, but they're doing it for themselves, aren't they? 100%, absolutely. And Phil McCracken asks, in your opinion, what do you think April 2nd will bring? Trump claims it is our Liberation Day. I have no idea, but what I know is that the garbage that's inside of the system must be burned off. And to shift people into the next system, we must have a crisis. The only way that I can see our liberation really happening is if we have a sound money movement and we, the public, take our power back. That's how it'll be our Liberation Day. Take your power back. That's it. I don't think that's going to happen on April 2nd, but it'll be interesting to see. Are you prepared for it? Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get it done. Don't procrastinate. Don't think about hopium, right? Oh, hopium's going to save us. It's not. You have to be as independent and self-sufficient as possible. And that requires community now. That requires getting to know your local food purveyors, who grows your food, who creates it. It requires you to know your neighbors. It requires you to do something. It requires you to buy gold and silver. But definitely come together, bring your skill sets, bring what you have to offer, and together we can make it through this. We can do that. I know we can. And Sean Lensing Feingold, nice name, What happens, in my view, when the LBMA declares they can't supply the deliveries, despite them already being 8 to 9 weeks for delivery? Well, what they would do is call a force majeure, and this has happened. It happened in 2020, right? Remember with the whole silver and gold thing back then as well. And what they do is they pay it out in paper. They just pay premiums. The problem now is that people are demanding, or some big kahunas are demanding delivery. So yeah, that's when, like we were talking about earlier, it's going to be very obvious that the emperor wears no clothes. But this is a global issue because all of the gold and the silver that they've shipped over here means that it's not over there anymore. So yeah, it'll be very obvious, and you'll see the prices spike. That's what's going to happen when that becomes obvious. Whoever is holding that physical metal, you're not going to sell into it because the crisis is still unfolding. But just like we're seeing gold above, 3,000 now, and staying determinedly and doggedly above that 3,000, that's chump change. That's chump change. So get your position built while it's still this cheap. And Agash Yaknik asks, have you heard of the, yes, thank you for bringing that up. Oh my God, that was something I wanted to bring up. Have you heard of Uber Eats offering buy now, pay later options? People are taking on debt for food. Yes, it started in the grocery store. It's Uber Eats. And I was reading an article earlier that JP Morgan Chase and some of the other large banks are getting into this space. Now they're saying because people want all these different options to pay. But the reality is because it's harder and harder for people to pay this. And so, that's like in my day, right? And I mean, I'm 70, so okay. But I remember when I went away to college, all of a sudden, all these kids were getting all these credit cards in the mail. Their parents weren't giving it to them. They were getting all these credit cards in the mail. And why? Because they don't know how to manage their money. And so they would take the credit card and they would spend on it. And then the parents would be forced to pay it. I feel like this feels very much like that. Very much like that. So yeah, that's crazy that you're going to order something from Uber Eats so you have all those other fees attached to it as well. Why not learn how to cook? There was a time, I'm not going to lie, there was a time where really I didn't really have much money for food, but I could make a pot of soup, and that pot of soup, boy, that could last me a whole week. And it was very nutritionally dense. Some lentils, maybe some barley, some onions, garlic, celery, and it was delicious. So, I think people are going to learn a whole lot of new skills. And I think it's a great time to do that too. And Natalina Luisa asks, hi, Lynette. I am a former bankruptcy corporate restructuring attorney. Do you have any feeling on the use of private equity investments to buy companies that have no chance of debt repayment? Let's see. I'm going to read that again. Do I have any feelings on the use of private equity investments? Yes, actually, I do. We've been talking about the rise of private equity, and so people are sending in their money, and then they're taking on even more leverage, and what do they care? That money's got to go someplace. So, yes, and I think that's just a sucker's bet. That is risk transfer 101. And if you have more thoughts on that or feelings, Natalina, would you please share them? Because this is what you were doing, right? So you're going to even understand that better than I do.
Yeah, and that might actually touch on to those zombie corporations we've done a video about as well. When these companies are, your 401k is made up of companies that don't make any money. They're not profitable, and they won't ever pay off their debts.
Right. Approximately, don't hold me to this number, but I'll be pretty close. 57% of the companies that are in the Russell 2000, 57% of the companies in the Russell 2000 are zombie companies. And the definition of zombie companies is a company that for at least 3 years have not been able to pay off their to pay all the interest on their debt, forget any principal. And so because the banks didn't want to show it, they just loaned them more money to pay the interest. Did that make them better? No. So yeah, thank you, Adam, because that's true. And maybe you can put that link in there as well.
Yeah, I'll
This is a
definitely put the
big
link
problem.
on. The zombie corporations is a good video we did too.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And Stephen Hamlin asks, what's the chances of selling out of gold, and why are you selling off your gold? First of all, I'm not selling off my gold. I'm selling off our wholesalers' gold. So let's be clear on that. And what's the chances of selling out of gold? Well, I can tell you that there are things that I was able to get back in the early 2000s that I have no option of getting today. So yeah, as this trend continues, and we are already in the start of a real gold rush, and there is no fever like gold fever, that there will be fewer and fewer things that become available. Plus you have, now the central banks are buying a certain bars of gold. They're not buying the collectible coins. But still, yeah, that is a real possibility because, like I said, I'm not selling my gold. I'm selling the wholesalers' gold. That's their job. That's our job. And as long as we can, we're going to.
There was two things real quickly. Someone asked in the comments earlier about an exit strategy.
Yes, we have definitely have a huge exit
Give us a call,
strategy.
please, so we can work with you,
Right.
Based on your needs and what you're actually looking for. The second thing was that we were talking about, and I lost it. Sorry, just kidding. Bye.
Okay, so let me go on to that exit strategy a little bit more because I think it's really important, and I think that's a great question. I think that anybody that's going to be buying gold from any company, that needs to be a question that you ask. What is your exit strategy? So remember how earlier I talked about the 25 ounces of gold being able to buy an entire city block, buildings and all, right? So there are a list of income producing assets. Right now, those zombie companies, that all that stuff needs to be burned out of the system so that it's clean. I couldn't go in and read a 10K right now and tell you for sure that there wasn't some other off balance sheet stuff going on that I have absolutely no idea about. Derivative that are written against corporations that I have no idea about. So let this wildfire burn all of that off. Additionally, because of all of the flood of the money, all that money printing, when that money is printed, it doesn't evaporate. It goes into the system and it's sloshing around, pushing prices up in your stocks, in your bonds, in your real estate, and all of the areas that they have targeted for inflation, and your cryptocurrencies even, right? All that money goes in there, meaning that they are all severely overvalued in terms of this stuff and what they actually do for you. Just like I was able to tell you, okay, this is the fundamental value of gold, and this is how you get that, and that's where it's going to go. Well, you can do the same thing for income-producing real estate, for income dividend and income-producing stocks or rights, et cetera, et cetera. So we determine based upon, those nuances, but heck, we'll share everything with you because we like it when you make educated choices. What a concept. But fundamental value can be determined for every single asset out there. And then, as I said earlier, I can't give you a lot of guarantees, but I guarantee you that all assets go to their fundamental value. And that overvaluation that's in there right now, that will be burned off. And remember I said, undervalue to fair value to overvalue to fair value to undervalue. Well, somewhere in this area over here, we're going to see an accumulation pattern occur. And I'm going to show it to you as it's happening, just like I do now, right? So I'm going to help you see as that's happening. I am not going to tell you we will ever get in at a bottom or out at a top because, quite honestly, that piece is kind of luck. But I can tell you that we'll be able to get in somewhere near a bottom and out somewhere near a top. And the exit strategy is to take those gains and convert them into income producing assets that, guess what? You can't outlive. What a concept. When I first became a stockbroker, nobody ever talked about you outliving your retirement assets. But today, from my understanding, well, you've got enough money to last you till you're 73. What happens after you're 73? Then you're dependent on Social Security and Medicare? That's not a very good plan. So our exit strategy is based upon valuations, and it's also based upon smart money, because I really do believe strongly that you should always do what the smartest guys in the room on any given topic are doing for themselves. So I know that was a little bit long-winded, but yeah, we have an exit. Yeah, do we have an exit strategy? Oh, yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do. And rest assured too, I can't guarantee what's going to happen in the future, but what I know is that every single person at Zang Enterprises is committed to your future success. That's their success, your success, right? So we are all in this together, and we can all not just survive, we can thrive together. So, yep, good question. Please, I hope you ask that of everybody. And Ganja Phi asks, do you think the revaluation will come after July, since that's when the bail-in laws take effect? Do you think it can happen in July this year or sometime next year? I think we need to be in hyperinflation in earnest with all confidence gone before they will do that first overnight revaluation. So I think it will definitely happen after July. I don't think we're there yet, because I don't think that the hyperinflation is obvious to everybody yet. But bail-in laws can happen, oh yeah, for sure, when they're ready to show their hand. So when they feel that enough risk has been transferred from the few to the many, which they're certainly working on right now, then and they're ready to show you that your money is not safe in the bank, because that's the other piece of it. They're trying to avoid runs, and that's why we haven't seen a full bail-in yet, and that hasn't been like really obvious. But when they're ready for that, when they think they've got you where they need you, that's why you've got to be so independent, so that that's not going to have an impact on you. Because how would that? If your wealth in the banks were bailed in, if they left you with the $250,000 insured, right, dollars, but the dollar loses all of its value, none of that is beneficial to you. None of it. Sound money. Sound money. And Tiger Stacker asks, Lynette, with Doge layoffs, fired, etc., do you think they will put those people in re-education for new jobs? Doesn't seem to be what they're doing. Do you think it will change the finances? Yes, because I think this is a consumer-driven economy, and I think that those people will consume less, hence the buy now, pay later kind of thing that's going on. Personally, it seems like a Band-Aid to me. Well, the big expenses are interest, Medicare, Social Security. So the layoffs, the firing, I mean, we need a good crisis. I'm sorry. We need a good crisis. We need to burn off all the garbage that's been built up in this system. It's violent, it's painful, but it's necessary. So yeah, I would say that it's a Band-Aid. I mean, it's not really going to impact where most of the money is going. And tax cuts, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't benefit from the tax cuts. If you get tax cuts, you have to pay less in taxes. We are going to benefit, but I don't see that they're being offset by any of the cuts. So yeah, I'd agree with you, Tiger.
These ones we answered, I had to go back. Sorry, here we go. The right
Okay. And Raymond Archuleta asks, should I use my credit cards to buy gold? Well, you got to do whatever you're comfortable with, but that's variable rate debt. And, I can't tell you exactly when this is going to be obvious, but what I can tell you is during hyperinflation, you ain't ever getting out of variable rate debt. So if you can do it and pay it off immediately, maybe. But I personally have never done that, and that would be a very hard thing for me to recommend you doing. But you do whatever you're comfortable with. Maggie Smith asks, isn't the gold located in 3 different places? So you're in Fort Knox, and you're probably thinking about, oh my gosh. I see it in my mind's eye. It's in New York. They mint coins there. Oh my God. It could be in multiple places. So I'm sorry, I just kind of got back from vacation, so I can't promise you that I'm all the way back yet. But there's gold all over the place, and if you're talking about government gold, West Point, thank you, and also probably some there's some in the Fed in New York as well. So yeah, it could be held in different places, sure. I hold mine in different places. It actually makes a lot of sense to hold your gold in a number of places in a diversified manner. That's something else we can help you devise a plan around. Because you want the barterable and your first lines of defense, you want that near you to grab instantly. But something like this can be in longer storage, take you a minute more to get it. So, hi Lynette, on your website, which we're redoing, I see your strategy is silver, raw gold, and wealth preservation. Won't the government look to confiscate raw gold? I'm not really sure what you're talking about unless it's this, okay? And because this is raw, it's just a $20 gold piece, and 1903 is the date on this. But remember the wording, this is a collectible. This is my collection. Right? I am going to pay a bit of a premium, not much, but I'm going to pay a little premium above this, right? So this is my collection. And I think that's the raw gold that they're referring to on there, okay, is your barterable position, because you don't need slab for barterability. You don't want slabbed for barterability. You want that for growth and other things, but yeah. And Steve Sergelas asks, please comment on buying/storing gold offshore. Say sovereign wealth protection in Caymans as recommended by Doug Casey or any other political jurisdiction other than the USA. And I would say one place that is Egon von Greyer's in Switzerland. It is my understanding that they have the largest gold vault in the world. The only challenge with that is getting it back when you need it. It was funny because years and years ago, when I first went on YouTube, I did a video with Bill Holter, who I have a lot of respect for. I love his work. He's a great guy. He's smart. And that was one of the questions that came up in this panel discussion. And because he was all for offshore vaulting. I don't know if that's still his position, but at that time, that was his position. And I said, I have a problem with that because how do you get it back? I like to hold my gold near enough where if I need to walk there, I can walk there. And so there's a couple of private vaults here in Phoenix. That's where I hold my gold. He said, and it was really funny, and I don't have this tape anymore, but he goes, oh, yeah, you're right. I needed my gold or some of my gold for something or other. And boy, it just took so long. It was such a pain in the neck to get it back. And I said, yep, you proved my point. So I am not really about that because what we are doing is executing a strategy through the trend cycle. And when it is time for you to execute that exit strategy, I can't tell you how long it's going to take you to get your gold back. So you again, I can tell you what I'm doing for me. But the bottom line is you have to decide what works the best for you and what you feel comfortable with. It's never a bad idea to be diversified. So maybe if you're thinking that you might move to that country, well, if you're going to move to a certain country, it could definitely make some sense to vault some gold and silver there. But these are not normal times, and transitions into completely new systems. World Economic Forum has been talking about this. We've been talking about for years and years and years. A completely new social, economic, and financial system. Is it obvious to you yet? And best life, for the beginner in the room, where to start, step one, please. Call us, right? That's the step one. But first you need to understand what is money, because that has not been taught to us. And then you want to really think about your current cost of living. So education is critical, best of life. It really is critical. Don't trust what anybody else says. Do your own due diligence. That's why in all of my videos, I give you links. Hold my toes to the fire. So the first step really is questioning everything. Doing some good reading. The Creature from Jekyll Island is a great book to help you understand the central banking system. And then, we're happy also to educate you. We've got a lot of PowerPoints that I've created for the strategy specialists to walk you through all of these things step by step. You really also need to understand who really legally owns everything, because it's not who you might think. You think you make a deposit in your bank. That's your bank account. That's my money. No, it's not. You have loaned the bank that money. And anybody that's tried to pull a chunk out, doesn't even have to be a huge chunk, has been discovering, wow, they're asking me all these questions. They're saying, oh, maybe I'm getting, they make you feel like you are a criminal when it's supposed to be your money. That should show you it's not. So you need to educate yourself so that you understand how the system is, and then you can make choices, educated choices that put your best interest first. And we are very happy to help you do that. And asking these questions too. Come in, ask. And even if you think it's a stupid question, there are no such things as a stupid question. Even if it's been asked a million times before, I ask it again. Please ask it. Because if you withhold a question because you think, oh, well, it's so basic and maybe it's a stupid question or something like that, I guarantee you at least 100 people will have the same question and they're afraid to ask. So this is a very safe space to ask any question at all, including on the pyramids.
Absolutely. And just real quickly, Best Life, I want to make sure that we're very direct for you. The first step, and I don't want to speak for Lynette, but I believe what she's trying to say is education would be our first step.
It's the
right?
first step.
Absolutely. We have to get educated. We have to know what money really is and kind of what we've been told. And how
the system is actually built. It's not built for you to thrive. It's built for the few to thrive. And you need to understand that so that you can make those educated choices. Oop. Okay. And Miramar asks, I started buying gold before I found you, so I have some bullion. I could probably do a trade to get one numismatic piece, but would have less total ounces afterwards. Would that be a worthwhile move? Well, it's the choice that I personally have made in the past when I did have bullion. It was, it wasn't like I hate bullion or I never liked it. It's just that it depends on where we are in the trend cycle, right? That's why when you ask me a specific question, a lot of times I go, oh, it kind of depends. But I would say yes, and that goes back to another question that was asked earlier on the quality and the rarity and how much these different things historically will move based on that quality and rarity factor. So even though you might have fewer ounces. You would have more purchasing power because of the supply and demand. So they historically go up a lot more, right? We've already entered that part of the phase where we are now in a modern day gold rush. So yeah, I mean, that's the choice that I have personally made. You do whatever you're comfortable with. So I guess that's it. But definitely, make sure that you watch our latest video about BlackRock and how they're really going to be controlling the entire supply chain on a global basis. How comfortable does that make to you? Also did some work on Social Security and Medicare, which is a big issue right now, as we saw. And we will be back next week, same place. And, again, I know that together we can make a positive difference for a lot of people. Let's build this global movement. Peaceful, quiet, but oh so necessary. Let's get sound money back in our monetary system again. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.